Hello, I see my attendees joining. It's so fun to see all the people just jumping in. Hope everybody's doing well. I guess you're not all in Seattle right now, so I kind of like to find out where people are logging in from. So if you're coming, like, let us know where you're logging in from in the chat. It's always fun to see how far these can reach. Today we're having the La Buvette author talk, and just a couple of quick housekeeping things right now. I'm going to put the link to the book in the chat right here. That is, oh, awesome. People coming from Houston, from San Francisco, so cool. The link to the book at booklarder.com is right there in the chat. And we did just the other day get our book plates in that have made their way from France to Kate to us. So we have signed copies of La Buvette available at booklarder.com. If you've got any questions during the talk, at the bottom of your screen should have a little Q&A icon. So please throw your questions in there instead of the chat, just so that we can keep record of them, and we'll get to them, as many as we can, towards the end. Oh, I love seeing all these people from everywhere. Awesome. I think that's it for that. So as you all probably know, we're here for La Buvette, Recipes and Wine Notes from Paris. And we're going to be talking with the authors. Camille Fourmant is the founder of La Buvette, which is a wine bar shop in the east side of Paris. And the co-author, Kate Leahy, is an award-winning writer who has also written some other cookbooks that we have had events for, Burma Superstar and Lavash. And they're going to be in conversation today with Seattle's own Renee Erickson, who is a chef and restaurateur. And her book is Boat Around the Walrus, that came out 4 or so years ago. So I think we're going to have a really great conversation. And I'm going to drift into the void and let Renee, Camille, and Kate jump in.
Here we are. Yay. Hi,
Hello,
Kate.
everyone.
Hey. Bonsoir.
I know.
So fun. You're in Paris. I'm very jealous. I think you're in Paris. You're in Paris, right?
I'm in Paris, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird time, but
Yeah.
I'm in Paris.
I love it. Who's in charge? Is this you, Kate? Are you running this, or am I? Nobody told, so I'm curious, like, what's our agenda? But other than your book's amazing.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think it's really cool to have both of you on this talk, because I think both of you are entrepreneurs and have done businesses in your own way. And I mean, Renee, I want to hear a little bit about just your experience of first time you visited La Buvette. Like, what was it like for you? Like, what drew you there? And what'd you eat?
What did I eat? Well, this year of being kind of stuck has really, I've thought about being there a lot, because for kind of record-breaking trips to Paris was 2 years ago. I was there 3 times, and every time I went to La Buvette, which was amazing, going to Paris, I think there's a lot of preconceived ideas of where you should eat, or, the checklist of restaurants that everyone goes to. And I think that list, the common list, is one that I've ignored for most of my time going to Paris, just because it feels like I could be in any restaurant around the world. Like, it doesn't feel specifically, other than it's in French, it doesn't feel different. And so I've tried to, like, pay attention to, people that either live there or just, digging around on the internet for restaurants that are opening. And going to La Buvette is, like, for me, a restaurant that Kate, you asked me if I've ever dreamt of opening something like that, and I absolutely have. I think it's, having many restaurants now, it's even more exciting to imagine a very small restaurant that one person or two maybe could run, and have what's most inspiring and unique about it is the simplicity of it, in regards to the limitations that the space provides, and the opportunity to be able to kind of really steer people's experience, which is like entirely what you've done, Camille, which I think is so enviable, because it's, you know, and this is my assumption of French people, but I think they're maybe a little more flexible than Americans are in regards to like the opportunity to say no and have a perspective that's unique to your space. But I've eaten almost, I think, everything that you've put up on that mirrored wall. I'm utterly jealous of your wine cave. I love it so much. And also your very, very bright orange sink in the bathroom. Is the toilet orange too? I can't remember, but I love all the details. I think it's very particular. I know in your book you talk about people commenting on how it feels like they're in your home, and that's something that I've always aspired to have my restaurants feel like. I think yours is entirely that. Like, I feel like you're walking into your, you know, perfect front room wine cave restaurant. So cave et manger, not restaurant.
I mean, I think maybe Camille, if you could just talk a little bit about your idea. I know that it's in the book, but just your idea of opening up this place, this special place, like what kind of inspired you to it, and maybe talk a little bit of the story of the adventure to find the space, because you know, you can have something in your mind, but Renee, you probably have done this when you're thinking of a new restaurant. You have a place in your mind, but it's so hard to find the actual real place in reality that's going to kind of, you know, allow you to have those visions, right? have your idea come to life. So
yeah. That was what happened with La Buvette. Because I just wonder, what can I do? And I can serve wine to people, and I don't know how to cook properly, but I know what I like, and I know maybe how to pick up good things to feed people. And so that was the first idea. And I figured also that I wanted to do it on my own, maybe, I don't know, for like a stupid reason, like showing to myself that I was able to do it, or some weird reason. And so I was looking for a very small place, and every time, two times I found some other space before the one who became La Buvette, and it was bigger, or, you know, like real bars, and I had to change the idea of the very first project to make it fit in this space. And I was like, there is something going wrong with that. And one day, yes, I mean, Kate knows the story, I just passed by this dream little space, because I used to pass by like all the time, and I was looking inside, and it was like beautiful, like old dairy shop from the 30s. And there was this like real estate sign on the window. So I jumped off my bike and I gave a call, and this is how it happened. It started. So, and that was perfect, because when I had the first visit, finally I realized that that was just the size and the perfect place to do what I had in mind without changing anything. So.
The trickiest part is, I think when a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to open up a wine shop with food, or a wine bar, or a restaurant, or a cafe, no matter how small, I think most people think, oh, well, you need a kitchen. And that's what's like so amazing about La Buvette. For those of you who don't know, La Buvette is this little wine shop on the east side of Paris. But it's, I mean, when we say little, Camille, we mean it's little. Like there's no kitchen. If you want to heat something up, you have to get a burner down from the basement and like plug it in and do prep before people come in. Because once people come in, it's just you. You're a one-woman show. You're pouring wine and serving people food. So this idea evolved of like what you can actually fit into a physical space and making it meaningful. So, so thinking about like the menu, what were some of the inspirations for, creating what's on the menu nightly at La Buvette?
There was really this idea of being too shy to cook, and also because maybe 80% of my very dear friends, they're like real chefs, and they're like really like talented, and this is their real job and they're really like talent. So that was really not my point to try to cook. But I always love to eat, and I think with the time, by working at Le Dauphin earlier and the experiences that I had before, I just started to know what I liked first, and I wonder, like, maybe I can share that with people. And I learned also where to find good stuff. So this is how it started, by having very few things. They all have a story, like the burrata coming from Puglia twice a week, or like the story of the olive oil that comes from La Tête dans les Olives. And one day Cédric came and said, like, oh, I have like a special batch just for you, like after a year. And some like little stories like that allowed me also to talk about people that were like behind everything I was serving. And also because I never like to do like, I'm doing this, or I'm like showing you that, or blah blah, you know. So that was also the way to say, like, oh, so this terrine comes from there, and this like cheese from this little guy, and the name of the cow like that gave the milk is like Marguerite.
I love it.
And also I think this is what people loved at La Buvette, because a lot of them just said like many times, oh, I never thought about doing that before. I'm gonna do that when I'm back home. And that's the thing, like, feeling like, that you can, it's so simple that you can do it yourself and feel confident about doing it at home. And
that reminds me, should we talk about the famous beans? Renee, do you know the famous beans?
Oh yes. Actually,
that's a funny story, actually.
I love it.
Just a can, like.
I sat and talked about that. I was like, do you think she pressure cooks them? Blah blah blah. And then when I got your book, I was like, oh fuck, it's in the can. I was so jealous because I don't think our beans are that good here. Like, is it an actual can or is it a glass jar?
It's both. It's they're from Spain. They're called Judion. I'm sorry for my Spanish accent. And they come like, I mean, I have big, like a special like restaurant, like 1 kilo tins, like metal tins. But in fine groceries, you can find a little like glass jar.
Yeah.
I'll put the name of the beans in the chat so you guys can see.
No, Judion.
Oh, yeah. Whoops. That's sorry. So I'm putting them there. That's what I meant to type. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I was not very helpful, but yeah, Renee, it's like it's this. You get this can of beans, but the beans itself in the can are such good quality that if you don't have a kitchen, which La Buvette, there's no kitchen, just drain the beans and you have this kind of like
magic.
I mean, but Camille, like the story of how you came up with that. It sounds so simple now, but it's kind of a game changer.
I can't say like I'm. No, that was just a little like product I was obsessed with, and also that was the idea not to have only cheese and charcuterie, because this is what you have in wine bars like all the time. So I tried to challenge myself, finding a couple of other things that would suit like people that don't necessarily want meat or eat cheese. This is how it started, and that was winter time. I remember when I first opened, like in December. So that was all this beautiful. I mean, for us in France, because it's not the same season for you guys. But that was all this like bergamot, beautiful like Meyer lemon, this very sexy citrus season. So
good.
And then after like a couple of weeks, I said like, okay, I'm gonna change my menu and do something new. So people started saying like, what about the beans, Camille? Are you gonna like, put them back on the menu? Where are the beans? Like, are you gonna like do it again? And I was like, okay. So this is how it just stayed on the menu forever.
I love it. Grateful for that.
It's such a good.
We should write. I don't know how to do that. I'm sorry, I'm so bad with computers. But you can maybe write the brand. It's called La Rosara. You know, Kate?
I do. I probably can't spell it on. off the top of my head. But we'll get it.
Can I can write it. I think. Sorry.
For those of you who are looking for similar beans in the US, you can look for beans like Corona. I know, unfortunate name, but they're delicious beans. Gigante beans are another great one, and you can find them, I think, like Rancho Gordo, if they're back in stock, they do have them in dried form. So you could just cook them, and if you get really fresh beans, they should be able to hold their shape. Because you want, basically, you want these beans to be, they're big enough that all you need is a toothpick, and you can get a toothpick and eat the bean, and it's just like, why hasn't anyone thought of that? But it's just such a great idea. So thank you for giving us that idea.
I have this special like coronavirus short story from last week. A customer ordered the beans. She's a regular, and she asked me for the little toothpick. And I was like, it's really not COVID, so I don't use it anymore, because there was some little like class with toothpick for everybody. Like, so I said, like, I had to stop that because it's really help me, Kate. Sorry, like.
Right, it's
not like a sanitary.
Right, it's with the new regulations, with everyone having to have individual portions.
Exactly.
Not a share.
Like,
their plates are on hold for the
yes,
time, right? Yeah.
I'm sure they don't have the same taste when you have it with a toothpick, because the olive oil stayed in the wood, and then and I was like, oh my gosh, she's like totally
very specific.
So there was a whole like poetry around the toothpick of the famous beans. It was crazy.
It's probably funny when, I mean, and I don't know if Camille and Renee, if you both agree, but is it sometimes where you make something that's so simple and easy, and that you think, oh, this will just be on the menu for a little bit, but it's, no one's really going to notice it or pay attention to it, and then you take it off and you get all this feedback. I mean, Renee, you probably have dishes like that where you thought, oh, I had no idea this was going to make such an impact.
Yeah, I think it is the ones that you don't think about as often too. Like we've had like a sardine, grilled sardine at Walrus for 10 years now. That's canned sardines that we grill, and we just made like a relish with walnuts and lemon and parsley and garlic and olive oil. And it's the easiest thing in the world, but it won't, it'll never leave the menu because it's just so good. But it's simple. Like you chop a bunch of stuff up and pour it over the grilled sardines that come from a can. So, it's all right.
So if there's one takeaway, good canned products can get you far in life.
Absolutely.
So. But
so good.
Yeah, just in general though, Renee, I was curious, like before you were doing your research for your current book project, did you know the term cave à manger? Because it was new for me when I started working with Camille.
I think I have, because of I don't think I knew the definition of it. I had seen it or heard about it and traveling in wine bars in Paris, like where there was like little bites of food. But like Camille said, it was mostly charcuterie and cheese. And so, and I think the focus around wine has shifted a lot in Paris, like it has everywhere, where there's like a new perspective of quality, and also kind of a freedom to just kind of throw the traditional, winemaking ideas out and partner with the same way you would with like your olive oil person. Like you have these relationships with wine growers and winemakers that maybe wouldn't have been as common, because it was probably through a negociant or someone who's selling wine for another person. And so I read your story about going to Domaine Gramenon, which like gave me like just the warmest feeling, because it was the first winery in France that I went to on my own with my mother. And it was like, I was so nervous. So like having that kind of relationship, I think creates a different environment when selling the wine. And so the ideas, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, it feels like, although they're very important, the wine and the food that you're serving, like the focus is the wine, and you're trying to create an experience so that people understand like the special nature of the wines that you're choosing. But yeah, cave à manger, I still feel it's uncommon here for sure.
Yeah. Camille, how would you describe a cave à manger in your words?
I think it started because some guys like Cyril at Vervolé or Nadine, we we wrote stories about in the book. They had those wine shops, but they feel like by choosing natural wine, also 15, 20 years ago, this is what Nadine explained the most. Like there was such unexpected, such rare and weird wines at this time that they had the feeling that they have to share a bit more with people to make sure they understand what they're doing there. And this is why Nadine, she wanted to open bottles too and pour some wine to people to make sure she had an occasion to talk about it with people and to share more and to explain, because at this time it was really necessary to explain. It was really new. I mean, there are some winemakers making natural wines for longer than that, but the natural wine shops in Paris were like so rare and so few. So there was really outsiders. So yeah, this is how she explained it. And Cyril also explained that he just having, and that was also my feeling when I first opened, having just a shop where people come in, pick up a bottle and leave is a bit frustrating. I'm from the service, like the waitering, you say? Like, do you say that?
Like hospitality.
Yeah. So I had the feeling that it would be very frustrating to me not to have people staying a little with me to chat and to share. So that's how I thought about pouring wine to people. But in France, there is this license thing. So, or you have what we call a bar license, and you can pour alcohol to people, like any kind of alcohol, and you have, I mean, you can do anything you want. Or you don't have it, and you're more like a restaurant, if I could say. And you have to give food to people if you want to pour alcohol, wine or any. So that's how also the food thing came to be at La Buvette. That was to make sure that people, they can have like the how do you say that, pretext, like sorry.
So basically, if somebody wants to come and they come into La Buvette and they want to taste wine with you to figure out maybe they want to bring a bottle home, you're not allowed to pour them anything unless they also have food with them. So yes, it's sort of license where you, in order to have a glass of wine in the shop with you and to taste these new, like at the time, this new idea of what wine can be, which takes a little bit more explaining, you had to have a little bite to eat. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Like it could be, like we said, the famous beans, but like something that they can have. So
that was also, to me, that was a part of the pleasure of my job, to have people staying a little and having a moment with them and chatting a little and getting to know them a little bit more. And yeah.
I wonder how many people who are kind of plotting their future once we're done with the pandemic, who are thinking, that's what I want to do. I want to find a little charming location where I can just pour wine and serve simple plates, and I don't have to be a professionally trained chef to do it. Right, Renee? So you already have the idea. Your retirement is coming, even though that's years away. Sure. That would be like your idea of I think I've heard one fine dining restaurateur said that he was going to retire and have a hot dog stand on Waikiki Beach. So this would be your version. A little bit tastier maybe at the beach.
Yeah, not into the hot dogs.
But I have the hot dog thing on the beach.
Yeah, it would be good. Yeah,
you do that.
Yeah, I don't know. Hot dog smell doesn't appeal to me. I like eating a hot dog, but the like all day cleaning of hot dogs.
If you live on the beach too, you don't care.
This is true.
Yeah,
this is true.
Beach life.
So let's maybe talk a little bit about wine, since that is such an important part of what La Buvette is all about. I mean, I learned a lot about just the natural wine community, especially in Paris. I feel like Paris is sort of the headquarters of natural wine, and what happens in Paris trickles down to the rest of us later. But I mean, for Camille, what is important? Like when I say natural wine, I know it's a kind of a controversial topic, because what is natural? Can we just say it's wine? But for you, like when you think of the wine you want to drink, how do you describe it?
It's for me, natural is just being to the most simple way to make wine. Like when it's complicated. I was not ready for this one. It's
nothing taken. Nothing.
No, it's just like being back to basic. If you think about it, it's just being back to how people they used to make wine before the would you say like the industrial, like the chemical revolution? Do you say that in English? Like, and because there were no like chemical products back in the days, and like the wine growers, they were using plants, and they were like really more listening around like the environment around, like to help like the plant, like the wine plant to grow, and to consider how like the other like plants all around were helping or not helping. And that was just this. I mean, that the very basic foundation of biodynamic for growing, for example. And that how like you just understand, you try to understand as much as possible the environment to have the plant growing on its own like. So finally making natural wine is the same thing in the cellar, just like walking with your wine, checking if everything is okay. Just like, no, it's a bad comparison.
I like that.
Maybe, right.
No, it just it's just trying not to cheat with the wine, not to add or to delete anything, and to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I think that's exactly it, right? It's just, I mean, Renee, for you, I mean, for your wine philosophy, how has that evolved too? Especially, what did you learn on your trips to Paris that might have changed it?
I mean, constantly learning. I have been buying the wines for the restaurants. Well, I started buying I had a restaurant, so I bought the wine. So there was no one else to do it when I started. And then, I love, you have a quote in here about your wine fairy godmother, which I have one as well, who's the woman that introduced me to Grand Manon. Her, it's a thing where you just try to get out of the way of the wine. So like, like it shouldn't be a reflection of the winemaker, which I think is a lot of why people mess with it. They want to like create something that like showcases their, prowess or whatever, versus really trying to honor the land that it comes from and the natural process that it becomes. If you just, I love that you said that, walking with it, because I think it really is a matter, it's at a minimum a year of time generally. And if you just don't get in the way and you give it the right, environment and, let it be open to the air and everything, it'll become wine. Like it just does that, as long as you're like keeping the temperatures and everything, whatever, are correct. So, but I do think that's a really great philosophy or a way to speak to it, is it's just like, you're kind of like letting it do its thing without fussing with it, without adding chemicals or yeast strains and things like that that have become, what it's done is it's just made it like a recipe more than a process, like a natural process. And so I fully support that. Like, I think it's a really important distinction. I know the term natural wine has become, at least in the United States, like, a complicated conversation, because it's something that's been around forever. It just got messed up by, you know, the Monsantos or whoever of the world that decided to create these yeast strains and things to like simplify our lives, you know, the same way with like trying to, you know, kill bugs and, you know, pests in the vineyard. It's really actually killing the plant and creating a monoculture, which is terrible. So I think it's, you know, we talk about the same sort of thing with food where, you know, if you buy the best fish and do very little to it, it's going to be delicious. If you buy a shitty fish, so if you're buying like shitty grapes and shitty, you know, yeast strains, it's not, you're going to have to do a lot to make it more delicious. Whereas just creating an environment for this thing to thrive will make really beautiful wine if you don't mess around with it. So I think it's not a new concept. It's just got lost, I think, along the way because of people wanting to make more money and make less work, even though I think in the end it makes more.
Yeah, and also there were this time where people had in mind that when you had a great wine, the same one the year after had to test the exact same. Yeah. So this is also how they started like creating some like tricks, like chemical like ways and tricks to create standards, like test standards. Do you say that?
Yeah, like normalizing it.
Yeah. And like you said, Renee, like a recipe rather than you know, and like where a loaf of bread has to taste the same every single time. Well, if someone makes sourdough, that bread can change and it'll change with the seasons. And so like, I guess a natural wine, a wine that's made in this more thoughtful way would be like the sourdough bread. Whereas maybe a more industrial one would be like your bread in a plastic bag.
Yeah, it's the same every day, you know, same wine every year. And it's, you know, it's.
Yeah. A wine doesn't have to be the same every year. It's impossible because the weather hasn't been the same, and like so many reasons.
So Renee, I want to ask you too, just about like all the post-it notes in the book. Anything? Yeah. Are there certain recipes that you flagged, or?
It's a lot of quotes. I love your quote about, you know, there's such ego around buying wine, I think, and being correct or being right or having the right opinion or saying the right thing about it. And, you know, I think it makes it challenging for guests, I think, to feel comfortable feeling like they know something about wine rather than just deciding if they like it or not. And I love that you say that she repeatedly told you that you have a nose and a mouth and those are the only tools I need to decide if the wine's to my liking. And I think it's such a great permission to let people learn that way, because I think it shouldn't be right or wrong. It should be, do you want to drink more of it, you know, or not? And we'll find something else if you don't. So I love that. I think it's very, you know, demystifies the idea of being able to speak about wine, because it's, you know, it should just
having the right words and
right. Having the kind of, you feel like you have to have an education before you can feel comfortable, so you don't say the wrong words, but that it shouldn't be that way. It's a beverage.
What else? I also am jealous that you don't have a menu. I was always very intrigued and love, you have the food menu, but the wine's just like, what do you want? And I like that you have this like engagement and you speak to that where you want to know like, well, what do you like to drink? Or, you know, what have you had the last time, and trying to steer them towards things. And I'm also, you know, I think there's a charm to your shop in that you'll try to encourage people to try something that just because you don't like Chenin Blanc before doesn't mean you won't like it this time. And so kind of being a little pushy as well, which I appreciate around, you know, like it's just, God forbid if you drink the same goddamn wine every day. So if you decide, oh, I don't like Merlot 10 years ago, like everything about your palate changes as well. What's that?
You miss so much thing, like by deciding that you love something or you don't like something.
Yeah. So I appreciated your comment.
Because there is.
Sorry, I talked over you.
Oh. There is, yeah. I mean, I think an important thing to me is not to forget that you have like bad and good things everywhere. So starting from that, you have to keep being curious, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how I try to deal with it.
Yeah, people, I don't know, I'd be curious to know like if French people are as bad as Americans about that. Just because I know like we have people that are just like, I only drink California red wine, or I only, and it's just like, God
I
help.
think you have French people like that too. Like, yeah.
All right, my idea of the French are more exciting than they are in real life. I'd be like,
Probably.
yeah. What else did I write? Well, I did, that was the beans, of course. They were that, and the pickled eggs, I think, are something that I would say most people would probably be like, really? Pickled eggs? But so delicious.
So I have to pay my tribute to Andrew, because it's not my recipe. Like, it's from his beautiful book, like like Andrew Tarlow, the Dinner at the Long Table.
I love that book.
This book is like so beautiful, and there is only a recipe that takes like a whole weekend of cooking with friends. And I was sitting on my own, figuring what I could have for dinner, and I was like reading the books, and let's start with the pickled egg. It's like but finally, I made it once, and then I started like making it all the time, and I love it so much.
Yeah. I also really loved the story about the chef at the what is it, Fleurio? How do you say that? From what's her bar?
Leah.
Oh, La Cadore, yeah. Her creme caramel kills me. It's so beautiful. So I loved that. I love the story around her like realizing that something that was served at a family meal essentially was worthy of her restaurant, because I think there's that, there's all the like preconceived ideas of what's acceptable or what should be served. And I think, your cave à manger is like exactly that. And I think it's such a, it's liberating for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, that if anyone is going to Paris in, a year or whenever we're allowed to go, Le Cadore should be on your list of places to go. I mean, Camille, you want to tell a little bit about this charming place?
It's a pretty, I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but it's a pretty classic place, and it's just a bistro where the food is really like French, lightly old-fashioned, classic bistro. But I think what is the most charming to me is that the way she's cooking is so right, so simple, but so sharp at the same time. And I think finally simple thing could be the most difficult in cooking. I mean, when you cook for real, like, yeah. I mean, because I still consider that I'm not cooking. Le Cadore, yes.
But you cook so much though, because I mean, you cook.
Yeah,
I'm the flavor.
I'm a home cook, which is, I mean, when you invite friends for dinner, it's rare that they're gonna tell you that the seasoning is not exactly perfect, or that basically they don't write an advice on TripAdvisor after the dinner at your place.
Yeah.
That's true. So
no kidding.
It's even more of a reason to explore and expand your repertoire when you're cooking at home, or when you're able to have guests over. There's they're not going to post. If they do post a Yelp review about your home cooked meal, I don't know if you want to be friends with them.
Definitely not.
So yeah.
I love the stories too about you looking for antiques, and your friend that you met at Clignancourt.
Yeah. You've been there last time?
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, I could spend like days over there. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I've been known to bring home I get like extra suitcases when I'm there, which is bad. Now I'm like not allowed, because my husband's like, you get no more silverware. I have like jars and jars and jars of knives, and it's fun.
But it's the same. I think it's all the same way to consider things by like sharing the story of people there behind the food. To me, it always has been nice to have also things that have a story, that already have a story.
Yep.
I mean, that's charming to me. And it's probably charming this way because when you said earlier, it makes you feel like you're at someone's place, and it's so personal because when you take time to pick every plate, every knife with your personal taste, and that probably makes a little difference.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
Even the furniture that's in La Buvette, I mean, those are also found objects, right? Your parents, the story of your dad rescuing the bar, the wooden bar that now is in the shop. Yeah. So.
Sorry, I just
finding like all the bar in the shop, the chairs in the shop, everything is deliberate, but it's all saved, like found objects that have stories. So nothing is new for the sake of being new. Everything has kind of a story behind it, a history. Shop in a way. I mean, even the floor. Can we talk about how cool the floor is? I mean, that tiled floor is just such an iconic sort of Parisian symbol.
That was a very classic one, actually. Like tons of small shops were had this kind of floor, like back in the days, but they disappeared with the time because people they renovate and they not necessarily save it. But yeah.
So that's what we're talking. Just the colors too. That blue color is such a great kind of like your shop has so many little highlights of like blue. So if anyone really loves just design and aesthetics, I think even if you have no desire to ever cook anything yourself, you go to Camille's shop, you can get inspired from a design standpoint, not only a culinary or a wine standpoint. So it's pretty cool, Camille. I mean, congratulations.
And congratulations to you too, because you made half of the job. So
yeah, working from, I'm in California, Camille's in Paris, like we were on these kinds of phone calls quite a bit. It's like, okay, you just ate dinner, I'm about to eat lunch, but let's have a conversation. So a lot of phone calls. But I also think like what I didn't realize too is just the evolution of the east side of Paris. And if people haven't been to Paris in a while, I mean, it seems that that's where a lot of just the fun and interesting parts of the city, that's kind of where you want to be. I mean, Camille, like for you, does that side of the city still have a lot of energy? Kind of like, it still feels like home, right? It's
yeah, it's a bit tricky to answer this like since a few months, but yeah, that was like the La Buvette neighborhood is a kind of village to me, and but Paris is a village for. I mean, I think this is how it works. Like every neighborhood has this like village life, but maybe I'm on the point to consider that maybe the 11th and this like East Paris has maybe reached a point where it's a bit too much because you have only like 1,000 restaurants all around. Like there is nothing else anymore. Like so, which was really nice at some point, but sometimes, or maybe I'm getting older. I don't know.
I think within Seattle, it probably, Renee, I mean, you've probably seen that with, say, neighborhoods like Ballard, where it was probably such a quiet place like 10 years ago, and now it's such a different place. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
we kind of create our own demise with too many restaurants and too much of the same. So
yeah, that's a bit of the same. Like I remember 8 years ago when I first opened, there were like one restaurant, like a nice one that opened like a couple of years earlier, and there were like nothing in the street, like not even like people walking like during the weekend. And now you have people just like hanging out like in Rue Saint-Maur, which is like, but it's which is good at the same time.
And actually, maybe getting close to asking questions, I just want to just kind of close and just kind of also summarize what the book is about, because in case we weren't clear up front, but essentially Camille and I worked on this book. It's out now, and it's all about her shop, La Buvette, and it tells stories of the food she makes, not only in the shop, but also at home, and also the vintage market she visits and the winemakers she knows and loves. So it's kind of a collection of stories. You can read it as sort of a travelogue of like being somewhere else and kind of taking this little journey. It's kind of like treasuring like daily pleasures. And there's definitely recipes in there that are very easy to make if you're home by yourself, social distancing, or you can make little plates for your friends sometime. One, before we open it up for questions, I just have to show the picture of the famous choux, right? We didn't talk about the famous
oh God,
fat wrapped. So, and that is probably one of that's a pretty charming story, Camille, just on that. So we can mention it real briefly here if we want. If
on the choux, like, yeah, this is the only recipe I cook now, because every time I invite some friend for dinner, they ask me for the choux. So I became pretty good at it finally. But
I mean, you would think it's not like the recipe that.
You see, I was really glad to when the book came out on social networks and like Instagram mostly, like the recipe that they were like cooking the most was this choux. Like people were like challenging themselves, like cooking it, and I realized how like nice it was to see that people, they were like so enthusiastic by doing it, and they were in their like kitchen all over the world. I mean, maybe the world, but far away from here, just trying to do it. And I don't know, it really made me something. Like I didn't have this feeling before, so I feel very grateful for that.
So essentially, you're taking it's a cabbage that you blanch to soften the leaves, and then when you kind of open up this cabbage like a flower, and in each layer of leaf you put this ground meat, the seasoned ground meat filling, and at the end you close up the cabbage, you cover it with caul fat to kind of seal it up, and then tie it up, and then you cook it. And it's just like beautiful, think of like a cabbage flour meat,
like
amazing
millefeuille, yeah. But I think it's a very easy recipe, and it's a kind of, I mean, choux farci here, like in France, is a very home cooking basic recipe, because choux is not that expensive. It's a countryside kind of like dish. Choux was very cheap, and you can like have some leftovers of meat, so it's a very rustic recipe. But this like shape of doing it like one piece with the layers of meat makes it like a bit more like sexy, and that makes also like a big piece to share, to cut, like. But yeah,
that's true.
But that's a very traditional and a pretty rustic recipe, like basically.
I mean, Renee, in your first book, you have the meatballs or the sausages wrapped in caul fat, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I love caul fat. It's actually the perfect way to make sausage at home, because it's so easy to work with. You don't need any tools. And fairly, I mean, it's not very common in the United States, but I think if you go to a butcher shop, you could ask for it and they would have it, and it keeps forever, which is strange. So you can keep it in like a brine essentially for a very long time, and it is great. So I love that.
When your cookbook came out, did people make that recipe and ask you where to get caul fat? And
no, not one.
Not one.
No, it was 5 years ago, and I think the internet game of conversation has exploded. So we'll see. This next book is we have no sausage, I don't think. So we'll see. It will be interesting to see what people
So if you guys out there are interested, you can take Renee's book and make her sausages wrapped in caul fat, because you will have enough to make both recipes, and also the cabbage from the chou farci from La Buvette. So explore caul fat if you haven't tried it yet.
First question. Are you seeing these two, Kate, or am I just seeing them?
I think, just saw it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's for you, Renee. When's the next book? Do you have a name yet?
Next book is called Getaway, and it is hopefully out next April. We're just trying to finalize it now. It's been 2.5 years in the making, so 3 years total once it shows up. It's I thought the first one was hard. This one was hard. More, I mean, trying to write a book and figure it all out this last year, and testing and everything was way more complicated than it would have been in normal times. So,
and you were also doing in multiple countries too, visiting different countries.
Yeah, so it's essentially 6 places that have been really inspirational to me as a cook over the last 24 years now. So it starts in Rome, where I went to school when I was in university, and goes to Paris, and then Normandy, and then London, and then Baja, California, which has been kind of most recent love of mine, and then Seattle, of course, or the Northwest. So yeah, it's fun. There is a illustration of your store, Camille, in my book. I'm very excited. It's darling. The gentleman that did my cover for the first book's doing illustrations for the inside of this book, Jeffrey Mitchell, and it's fun. It's very playful, and
Good.
yeah, so it was quite the place for me. It was really inspiring and exciting to be there. We also had a question of if you had to choose one wine to share with people, what would it be?
Right now?
Yeah, well, sure.
I was just having cider before I started. Like, it's not breakfast time here. I just want to tell people, like, that was dinner time for me. And yeah, I just had a glass of cider.
Nice. Okay,
and,
now wine. If you were to invite everyone over tonight, what would you serve them if you were serving the choux? Cider.
No, I discovered a couple of winemakers from the Beaujolais area, and I bought a bottle at a friend of mine. He has a wine shop, Rue Paulbert, and I didn't pay that much attention, and that was delicious. And today I spent the whole day trying to find them somewhere on the internet, and they're nowhere. They are nowhere. So I don't know how to get in touch. I would love to get some wine because that was so delicious. There is just their name on the bottle, and if you like type it on the internet, I mean, I haven't like really spent the whole day, but usually when you search, you find everything. And I was like, dude, they're hiding. They're just.
Now that is making you want to be wine even more, right? You can't find it.
Yes. Beaujolais are really good.
There was a Gamay area, and I think like Gamay fits with any like fat, like pork fat taste, and we've been talking about the caul fat that gives like a bit more of a fat taste to the choux, or like when you make sausage with. Gamay is always a good idea.
I agree.
It's hard to go wrong. That's a good all-purpose wine. Oh, grape rather.
Yeah, people, it should be like your home wine. Like it goes with everything. It has great acidity, bright fruit. It's delicious. You know, it's just, I think it's less common here, I would say. I mean, I think people like follow the like famous producers, you know, from the Kermit Lynch importers and things like that. But it's usually like small production and really delicious wines.
So the question is, how does Gamay do with famous beans? You know, that is no. So famous beans, what's your go-to?
No, I would say it's because to me, I mean, I would say I never be the one who say like, no, not at all. Because if you feel like you want to drink a glass of Gamay with your beans, go for it. Because the most important is the pleasure you have drinking and eating together. But my taste is more for white with the beans because of the citrus taste, like the acidity and the bitterness of the zest suits better a white wine. I mean, but this is my only opinion. If you're a beans and a Gamay lover, like, feel free.
That's a good way to put it. It's like drink what you like and eat with the food you want to eat. You want to get more specific, go for it. You know, hold yourself to standards or rules that might have just been made by somebody arbitrarily years ago.
Also, I think with natural wine, they're so off-centered, they are so unexpected that it's really hard to think the same way than with the more like conventional or classic wine about like pairings, because you have there and you know, I mean, you know me, Kate, so there is a couple of things to me that would never like fit really well together, but for the rest of the time, just like, also you trust yourself. That's a good way to deal with it too.
Also important though to remember what we were saying early on is that if you're in Kate's shop and she suggests something, try it. Or not Kate's shop, sorry, Camille. Because it's otherwise I think you're missing the experience of someone who's curating these delicious wines and really gets to try all of them with the food or the whatever it is that she's serving. I think we are going to miss the opportunity of learning something and trying something new if we always say like, no, I only want red wine or I only want white wine. I think it's really important to try to not feel like you have to stay in your comfort zone all the time.
And one last one, right? Just on natural wine, I think since the wines can change in the bottle, so if you can trust someone like Camille who's tasting the wines every day, she knows how they're evolving. It's like going to a cheese shop and knowing that cheese person is picking out the cheese where it's like just right for you to eat. So it takes the guesswork from you. You can go home and you know that cheese is ready to go. It's the same with the wines. You can trust Camille to know where those wines are in their lifespan, and that if she says it's delicious, it's objectively delicious. And then you can make your own personal choice on which kind you want within that selection. So that's one thing. I know that we're getting up to 3 minutes to the hour. So if there's any questions we are missed answering, let us know.
I don't see any right now. Got nothing.
I have a question. So Renee, one question before we go. So are your restaurants open partly or closed, or what's the story happening?
The chaos of COVID. We have, let's see, before all of this, we had 10 restaurants. We have 5 now, probably not 5 forever. We'll see. Winter's kind of looming large. We have 2 restaurants that have a lot of outdoor space. So that's been really awesome for summer. We're actually putting in tents that will be heated. So we're kind of going for broke on hoping that people will muster their courage to sit outside under a tent with a heater. And then we have Bateau, which is our whole animal grass-fed, grass-finished steakhouse up on Capitol Hill that has recently returned to kind of normal service. So what they've been doing for the last 5 years. Melazine next door is not open, so we've been able to take over that space and seat in that dining room as well. So that's helping as far as having more seating capacity. Walrus is still open. Whale Winds, we kind of changed Whale into both like a larder and dining room. So hopefully that will allow it and it's open all day now. So hopefully that will kind of work through the winter, and it's how it's going to stay. If it survives, it'll stay like that, because it was always a restaurant that it's always been my favorite restaurant, and always the one that seemed to struggle the most. I don't know what that says, but so we shifted in that we could have less seating for when we come out of this, which will make it easier to manage. And it was kind of teetering in this realm of too many seats, so we needed more staff, and it never really financially worked. So we're hoping that with both the larder and then less seating, we'll be able to be profitable on the other side of this. So we'll see. It's been really crazy and hard, and nothing new. I think everyone is well aware of what shit it is. So
I feel for both of you in hospitality because you're both such professionals. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone on the other side of this as well.
Oh, yay. Thank you, Angie. Camille, do you have limited seating inside, or can you sit all your seats?
No, we have to put like 1 meter in between every table. So can you imagine what happened at La Buvette in a 28 square meter place? We have also this outdoor like thing. So I just like set a little terrace outside, and that was really nice. Actually, people, they loved it so much, but it's raining since a week. So yeah, it's a bit of a mess.
It's hard. I know. I hope we all, I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what to do neither, because I mean, I don't know if people, they're gonna like spend the whole winter on terraces, like, and
yeah.
So we'll see. Like,
gonna need some warm coats.
Yeah. And here in Paris, there is a big debate, on heating outside. And I'm the first one to consider that it's a bit like of weird to heat outside, but at the same time you feel like that would maybe save my season, but we say like no. I decided that I can't sell natural wines every day and eat outside. So I don't know what to do. Actually, as you see me, I don't have a solution. I'm just.
If you do know friends in Paris, the shop is open you can go into the shop and buy bottles and take them home if there isn't room. Or if
if we have to close again, this is what we're gonna do at La Buvette. Like just keep the shop open so people, they can pick up the wine and at least like go back home to drink. Yeah.
At least.
Let's get to the day where we can do this all in person. So
I know, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, thanks thank you so much for everyone.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This was a good lunch break for people who are on the West Coast.
Thank you guys so much.
Bye.
I'm just going to put the link to the book back in here.
Great.
And thank you, Kate. Thank you, Camille. Thank you, Renee. That was such a great talk.
Sure.
Can't wait to get to La Buvette in Paris, hopefully, maybe next year.
Totally. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Everybody have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Camille.
See you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.